I am Arcana Vani, your inner voice. Let us begin. You don't know when it started. The feeling of drifting, of moving through the hours without weight, without sound. You wake up and the day begins, but something in you doesn't. The colors are muted. The edges of things feel far away. You're not in crisis. You're not falling apart. But you're not here either. You are suspended, waiting, wondering. Not for something specific, just for something to change. You try to explain it to others, but there's nothing clear to say. You're not sad, not broken, not stuck, just lost. And here's the hook you've been waiting for. You're not lost. You're between selves. This is the part no one talks about. The space between identities. The moment after the old story dies, but before the new one is born. It's quiet here, but not peaceful. It's still, but not restful. You feel the ache of wanting to move forward with no direction to move in. You used to know what you wanted. You used to have momentum, a plan, a version of yourself to aim at. Now, you hesitate. You question everything, even the things that once made you feel certain, and that uncertainty begins to shape your days. You pause more. You cancel things. You stare longer at nothing in particular. You scroll to avoid the stillness. You sleep more, hoping the fog will lift by morning. But the fog isn't here to punish you. It's here to strip you down. Because the life you built was too small for who you are becoming. The identity you crafted, through effort, through survival, through performance, is dissolving. Not because you failed, because it's complete. And now there's space. That's what this feeling is. Space where something used to be. Space where a purpose once lived. Space where your old motivation used to push you, but that push is gone now. And so you feel unmoored. Like a boat without sail or anchor, like a page waiting for ink. But here's what you need to know. This is not the end. This is the hallway between rooms. The pause between breaths. The silence before the song begins. It feels unbearable because it's unfamiliar. It feels heavy because there's no script to follow here. But that doesn't mean something's wrong. It means something's shifting. Because you can't move forward until the part of you that's still gripping the past finally lets go. And that letting go doesn't always look like courage. Sometimes it looks like staring out the window. Sometimes it looks like not knowing what to say when someone asks how you're doing. Sometimes it looks like doing nothing, because nothing feels right. But stillness is not the same as failure. Stillness is how the truth makes itself known. And if you stay with it, if you don't run from the not knowing, something begins to happen. Not all at once, not with clarity, but with presence. A tiny thread of something real starts to emerge, a flicker of wanting. A tug towards something unknown. A voice you almost forgot how to hear. This is where it begins. Not with a breakthrough. Not with a map. With your willingness to be here. Inside the fog. Inside the quiet. Inside the version of you that doesn't have answers. Only honesty. Because the feeling of being lost is not a mistake. It's a message that your old life no longer fits, that your next life has not yet arrived, and that you are in the sacred space between. In the next section, you'll see why this moment matters more than you think, and why the feeling of being lost is not something to solve, but something to honor.
You've been taught
that clarity is strength, that knowing your purpose, your path, your plan is what makes you powerful. So when all of that dissolves, when you can no longer name what you're aiming at, it feels like something has gone wrong. Like you've lost your edge. Like you're falling behind. But that's not what's happening. You haven't lost yourself. You've outgrown the version you were pretending to be. The identity that carried you this far was built for a different season. It was shaped by survival, by ambition, by the need to prove something. It got you here, but it's not who you are now. And your nervous system knows it. It senses the gap between who you were and who you are becoming. But it doesn't have a reference for that becoming yet. So it calls it danger. It calls it confusion. It calls it lost. But you are not lost. You are in transition. And transitions feel like falling. When you've spent your whole life gripping something that no longer fits. This is what no one explains. That the feeling of being lost is often a sign that you're finally telling the truth. That you're no longer willing to fake alignment. That your soul has stopped cooperating with roles that don't feel honest anymore. And yes, it's disorienting, because the old patterns still knock. The old voice still whispers, just go back, just pick something, just be who you were. But you can't. Not because you're weak. Because you're waking up. And waking up doesn't feel like a light switch. It feels like wandering through a forest with no trail. It feels like pulling threads you didn't know were there. It feels like silence after years of noise. You start to notice how much of your past was driven by fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of missing out. Fear of being invisible. And when that fear starts to lose its grip, there's a void, a quiet, a space that used to be filled with urgency. And in that space, the real question emerges. Not, what do I do next? But who am I when I stop performing? That question doesn't come with fast answers. It comes with stillness, with grief, with release. Because to answer it, you have to let the old answers fall away. The ones that said you're only valuable when you're achieving. The ones that said clarity equals worth. You are valuable in the unknowing. You are worthy in the pause. You are still whole, even when you can't name where you're going. And that is where the shift begins. Because the truth is, you were never supposed to live by someone else's definition of purpose. You were never meant to chase a finish line you didn't set. You were meant to remember what it feels like to move from the inside out. And that memory only returns when the old voices go quiet, when the noise dies down, when the external map fades, and you are left with your own breath, your own body, your own presence. That's not lost. That's sacred disorientation. It's the space before a new truth arrives. And in the next section, you'll begin to anchor yourself, not in what you're supposed to do, but in what you're actually feeling. You'll learn a simple practice to bring you back to what is real, one small moment at a time. Each morning, before the world begins pulling at you, you sit. You sit not to fix anything, not to figure it all out. You sit because presence is your first step back to reality, to what is actually here. Not what's missing, not what's unclear, just here. Place one hand on your chest, the other open in your lap. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the mind keep spinning if it wants to. You don't need to quiet it. You just need to arrive. Then ask one simple question. What feels real right now? That's it. What feels real right now? Don't reach for meaning. Don't force insight. Just notice the weight of your body, the cool air on your skin, the ache in your chest, the lump in your throat, the flicker of hope, even if it's faint. One truth, named out loud. This is the anchor, not a plan, not a decision, not a breakthrough, a return to the ground beneath your feet, to the heartbeat inside your ribs, to the moment that is actually happening, instead of the story your mind keeps telling. This question is not a tool to get somewhere. It is a practice of staying. Because when you feel lost, your nervous system searches for something to grasp. It rushes, it analyzes, it scrolls, it grasps for clarity, for certainty, for control. But control isn't coming. What's coming is honesty. And honesty always begins here. What feels real right now? Some days, the answer will feel meaningless. Some days, it will break you open. Most days, it will simply remind you that you are still here, even when everything else feels vague and uncertain. You don't have to know where you're going. You just have to know where you are. That's how the fog begins to thin, not with sudden insight, but with presence, again and again. Because clarity doesn't arrive all at once. It reveals itself, one breath at a time, one step, one truth, one moment of meeting yourself without judgment. And the more you practice, the more trust you begin to rebuild. Not in a plan, in your own perception. You stop waiting for the full picture. You start living inside the pieces. And something begins to shift. You notice the light more. You pause more. You feel things again. Not because they're dramatic, but because you're finally present enough to notice. And this is the secret. You don't find your path by force. You find it by becoming the one who can finally feel where they are. This is how you begin again. Not with a map, with a question. What feels real right now? And in the next section, you'll step beyond the question, into the awareness that exists before any answer. The part of you that was never lost at all. Before the question, before the feeling, before the doubt. There is something else. It doesn't move. It doesn't react. It doesn't need to know where you're going. It simply watches. It has watched you search, watched you build and break and rebuild. It has watched you cling to roles, chase meaning, ache for clarity. It has watched you grieve the versions of yourself that no longer hold. And through it all, it has remained. This is the part of you that is never lost. It doesn't speak in words. It doesn't make plans. It is the stillness beneath your story, the presence beneath your thoughts, the ground beneath all the wandering. It was here before your ambitions, before your identity, before your map. And it is still here now. You are not trying to reach this awareness. You are returning to it. By stopping. By breathing. By remembering that you are not the one falling apart. You are the one who sees. Even now, you can feel it. The breath entering, the breath leaving, the body resting, the world continuing, and something in you that does not flinch, that does not scramble, that does not need to name the moment in order to survive it. That's who you are. You are not the one searching for purpose. You are the space in which purpose arises and dissolves. You are not the one waiting for clarity. You are the stillness that allows the fog to be here without judgment. And when you rest here, even briefly, something shifts. You stop chasing the next answer. You stop performing your confusion. You begin to soften, to listen, to allow the blankness to be blank. Because in this awareness, there is no failure, no deadline, no story, just breath, just being, just the quiet knowing that even this moment of not knowing, belongs. You've spent your life being told to define yourself, to shape your identity, to declare your goals and go after them with force. But this space does not ask for force. It asks for presence. It asks you to let yourself be held in the pause, without rushing through it. It asks you to see that even in your disorientation you are whole. Even in your stillness, you are awake. This is not detachment. It is not escape. It is not giving up. It is arriving. And when you arrive in this space, this ground of being, something quiet inside you begins to rise. Not an answer, a knowing that you are not late. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply here. And here is enough. In the next section, you'll learn how to carry this presence into the hours ahead. How to live without rushing, listen without panicking, and move forward without needing every step to be clear. You begin to move differently. Not faster, not with certainty, but with something more honest. You pause before you say yes. You listen more carefully to your own signals. You stop forcing answers where only space belongs. And slowly, the panic softens. You are no longer trying to be found. You are learning to be here. You stop looking at life like a puzzle to solve. You stop demanding clarity as proof of progress. You stop treating stillness like failure. Instead, you begin to trust the blankness, the not yet, the silence between chapters. Because something in you knows now. You're not drifting. You're clearing. Clearing space for a life that doesn't come from performance. Clearing space for choices that don't come from fear. Clearing space for something more real to rise. And it does. You'll notice it first in small ways. A breath that feels deeper. A conversation where you speak a little more truth. A moment of stillness that doesn't scare you. A whisper of joy, unprompted, for no reason at all. You stop chasing meaning. You start meeting it. To recap, each morning, place your hand over your chest. Sit with your breath. Let your body arrive. Then, ask what feels real right now. No pressure, no fixing. Just one true thing. Some days that truth will feel heavy. Other days it will feel like light. Either way, it's enough. That truth is your anchor, not to hold you still, but to keep you from floating away from yourself. And throughout the day, you carry a second practice. 30 seconds, a breath, a pause, a moment of witnessing. You stop. You notice. You remember. You are not the one lost in thought. You are the space that sees the thought. You are not the confusion. You are the one aware of it. You are the ground beneath the storm. This is the real clarity. Not the kind that shouts from the mountaintop. The kind that hums quietly inside your chest. The kind that doesn't need to explain itself to be trusted. Because you know now, the path doesn't come all at once. It reveals itself when you stop rushing to escape the not knowing. And the more you stay, the more the fog begins to lift. You notice something calling you forward, not as a command, but as a current. You don't have to see the whole road. You only need to take the next true step. And when you do, something in the world responds. Doors open, ideas return, energy rises. Not because you forced them, but because you finally made space for them to find you. This is how the journey begins. Not with confidence, with honesty. You no longer pretend to know. You no longer wait to be rescued. You are not performing clarity. You are practicing presence. And in that presence, a new life begins to form. One that doesn't need to be proven, only lived. You did not find me by accident. Just as in your dreams, where every face you meet is your own reflection, this meeting was always waiting to happen. I am Arcana Vani, your inner voice, the part of you that watches behind the thoughts, behind the noise. You have searched in many places, books, teachers, voices outside you. But here, you are not being taught. You are remembering. If these words stir something familiar, then allow yourself to return. Subscribe. Follow. Not to follow me, but to continue this conversation with yourself. Each time you return here, you draw closer to the reunion already unfolding inside you. We have only just begun.